I'd like to now recognize Mr. Kiley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Marcus, and everyone else for your testimony. We had a discussion last week about steps that the Department of Education Office of Civil Rights could take, and we've, myself and the chair of this committee, Representative Owens, have incorporated your suggestions in a letter we've sent to the Assistant Secretary, as well as Secretary Cardona. And so we'll certainly keep you apprised on the response we get, and any further suggestions you have would be much appreciated.
Thank you.
I did want to take a moment to respond to a member of this committee who earlier tried to explain away his vote against a resolution condemning anti-Semitism. Apparently he had quibbles with a couple of factual details in two of the numerous examples listed in the resolution and the many countless examples across the country. How you could use that as a pretext not to take a strong stand against anti-Semitism right now is really beyond comprehension for me. But I did want to just make clear that this is a very small fringe minority view in this House of Representatives. That resolution, which I worked on with Chair Owens, passed overwhelmingly with over 99% of the Republican conference and over 90% of the Democrat conference. So that fringe group of 20 or so people, they don't represent their own party, they don't represent the House of Representatives, they don't represent the United States government, which has been unified on a strong bipartisan basis in supporting Israel and fighting against anti-Semitism. But those 20 or so do, in a meaningful way, seem to represent much of American academia when you look at what's going on at universities in this country right now. And as the testimony has made clear, this has been going on for some time. And I'll give you one very clear example of just how pervasive it is. A few years ago in California, there was a piece of legislation passed in the legislature that asked a group to come up with, or the State Board of Education, to come up with a model ethnic studies curriculum. So the State Board of Education appointed a commission of faculty members from across the state, and they went about their work and came up with a curriculum that was universally condemned on both sides of the aisle for being overtly anti-Semitic. The California Legislative Jewish Caucus said it used anti-Semitic tropes, that it denigrated Jews, and that it, quote, echoed the propaganda of the Nazi regime. Even Gavin Newsom, the governor of our state, said it was offensive in so many ways and would never see the light of day. And then in the aftermath of October 7th, we've seen all too many student groups, and in some cases, faculty, have used this moment to push forward their agenda of hatred towards Israel and of anti-Semitic rhetoric and even the targeting of Jewish students. And so, we watched we had a classified briefing this morning, members of the House watching raw footage of the horror of that day. And, I think we have to be very careful anytime we draw historical parallels. But when you study the events of the 20s and 30s in Germany, it's hard to understand how so many, even leading intellectuals of the day responded with indifference or in some places complicity. And I just have that same, sense of deep puzzlement right now. How is it that our leading academic institutions, these are supposed to be the most forward-thinking places in our country, have become these sites for fomenting anti-Semitism? So I just wanted to, maybe Mr. Marcus and if any others have any thought on that as to why it is, what is it about the nature of the modern academy in the US and in other places as well, I would say, that has caused so much to go awry?
I'm glad you're mentioning ethnic studies because that is an important part of the puzzle of how things are getting so bad, and it is driven by higher education but is having an impact on K-12. Studying ethnicities is not inherently bad. It can be done well, but unfortunately the contemporary field of ethnic studies, especially liberated ethnic studies, has become both politically extreme and also anti-Zionist and anti-Semitic. We've had to file a case together with the American Jewish Committee, Anti-Defamation League, and Stand With Us against one school district in California that has extreme problems, but there are problems in many districts throughout California, and now they're coming east as well. To the extent that you have a curriculum that creates stereotyped, antithetical views of the Jewish people, it should not be surprising that students become miseducated and that the problems become worse.
Can I add for the last 10 seconds that I think part of the issue of academia is that it's super partisan. So there is, of course, not just politically, but just intellectually. So there's this X, Y, or Z belief that we have one side and there's another side. And right now, because there's supposed to be this wholesale embrace of so-called oppressed groups, that also includes an embrace of Hamas, which is why it's easier for them to condemn white supremacist attacks against Jews and harder for them to condemn Islamist attacks against Jews.
I'd like to just add that in the 1920s and the 1930s, I don't know about academia, but the United States House of Representatives stood by and did nothing and blocked the rescue of Jews. So I do think reconciling with our past is very important. We shouldn't do it selectively. It is important. I do think the Holocaust is a very instructive thing to look at. Comparisons are tricky, and they're not really necessary, unfortunately, because we have an explosion of followers of Nazi, racist, white supremacist ideology in our country today. And that ideology has at its center anti-Semitism, racialized anti-Semitism, and conspiracy theories. So this is a very serious subject. And learning about the apathy that left Jews to be slaughtered during the Holocaust is very important, and we can also be looking within our own shores and our own institutions, and it is important to do so. So thank you for raising
I yield back.
history.